Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. It's a happy day for us here in Fort Mill, South Carolina. Glad to be here for another Sunday, and we have everyone with us. And we're going to get rolling on this tonight. Open topic, open discussion, ... again. We like the open discussion. We hope that you guys enjoy that. We might play the card game. We'll see if anyone has any topics for discussion first, and if not, we'll dive back into the unpack that game. We seem to love it. So welcome to everyone that's listening, whether you're here in the chat or going to be here in the chat, or whether you're listening to the playback. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here. As usual, we'll introduce ourselves for those listening for the first time. We actually do sometimes, occasionally, have new listeners, so there's a reason. My name is Jason. I'm the host of the broadcast, and also with me, I have a wonderful panel. These folks that are willing to meet every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which I very much appreciate. I will introduce Glenn from Australia, our friend, first. And Glenn, take a minute to say hello to the peoples, please.
Howdy. Sorry, couldn't do the write-up. Unfortunately, you go to a bloody city and you get crook.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing happened to Jonathan when he went to a city for one day, comes home, and next you get crook.
Yeah.
Better to live in the country.
Yeah. Well, we certainly understand when it's the right time. It'll be the right time, and we'll make do, no problem. But I'm glad you're on the mend. Thank you, Glenn. We'll hear from Nez, our friend from Ohio, of the Nez Lover channel. Also, Marisa, take a minute, say hello to peoples, please.
Thank you, Jason. Hello, everybody. Hello to everybody who's in the chat lurking and to everyone who catches the replay. And I'd just like to ask, if you feel the need or feel the spirit move you, please share the link for the stream out on your social media. We'd certainly appreciate it. And yes, we're having open discussion tonight, and I'm kind of hoping we get into the card game again. I think that's a lot of fun. But I can't wait to get started.
Yeah, for those that didn't hear it last week, what do you call it? What's your secondary name for unpack that?
I don't know. I keep kicking around different names. I think I like shame and accusation, or shame and confrontation.
Shame and confrontation. Yeah, it's like that game back in the 70s, Truth or Consequences. It reminds me of that, Truth or Consequences.
That's funny.
Anyway, thank you, Marisa. Before we get on to introducing Jen, I mentioned, most people probably know that Nez has her own channel, and you probably also know that Jennifer goes on there on the weekends, usually when she can. If you haven't had a chance to watch last night's broadcast, please do yourself a favor and go on over. So if you haven't seen it, basically it's two people doing their art, and Nez has a beautiful singing voice, in my opinion, and she puts on karaoke music and sings to it. I find it very soothing, and I love it when she does that. And occasionally she plays other artists, friends of the channel, and so it's a really good time over there. Like I said, do yourself a favor and watch the Saturday night broadcast recently. She's got a lot on her channel. You can go back and listen to if you're into that sort of thing. But it's Nez Lover is the name of the channel. So please go visit. All right. Last but certainly not least, I'll introduce my amazing wife, Jennifer. Take a minute to say hello to the peoples, please.
Hello, peoples. Good to be here as always. And I'm like Nez. I really look forward to our Sunday evenings with everyone in the chat and these lovely three people on the panel. Love it, love it.
You probably, not to correct you, but you probably meant not unlike Nez.
Oh, darn it.
No, it just seemed like unlike Nez, meaning that
Oh,
she,
not
yeah,
like
not
that.
unlike Nez, right?
I had too much coffee later in the day. It's frying my brain.
Oh well, I have to
Thank you
correct
for the
you.
correction. Thank you. Thank
Uh,
you.
Absolutely. I have to
Did
correct you occasionally because you do not hesitate to correct me. We're just talking about
I
that.
know, right?
I don't mind at all. I want to speak properly. Oh
I
my
should have just
goodness.
said like Nez. That's what I
Yeah.
meant.
Yeah. I know that's what you meant. See,
Oh,
that's the
geez.
thing when someone corrects you that my dad used to do it a lot. He'd correct me with some nitpicky little thing. And you mean blah blah blah. And I'd say, did you know what I meant? And he would say, yeah. I said, well, then there's no need to correct me. It was mistaken pronunciation of a word. I used the wrong word. You still got the meaning. So what difference does it make?
Yeah, it's true.
Anyway,
You guys know what I meant.
you guys know what I meant. All right. So with the introductions of the panel over with, we will move on to saying hello to those that are in the chat, and we will make sure and say hello to the new people that pop in. We always try to do that. Don't want to leave anyone without a warm greeting. So Jen, if you could take a minute to say hello to the few people in chat at the moment.
Absolutely. So we have our very own Nez at the top saying hey to everybody. Jamie Grace is here. Hey, Jamie. We got to chat on the phone for about an hour earlier. That was fun. Excuse me. Rachel Menifee is here. And we got Naughty Nikki. Hey, Nikki. And I think that's it so far. Hey, guys. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Sunday evening. Unless
All
you're
right.
near Glenn and it would be Monday morning.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming. And as I said, we'll make sure and say hello to people that come in. All right. We're going to dive into the game. By the way, because it is open topic, open discussion, if anyone, while we're playing the game, if anyone comes up with a question for the panel or a topic that you'd like us to discuss, please just pop it in the chat. But until that happens, we're going to dive back into this game, unpack that. So everyone in the chat has heard us play this, and I personally find it entertaining and thought-provoking. It can lead to other conversations. So let's dive right in, unless
All
anyone
right.
has any other announcements or anything they need to share. We will, when Glenn feels back to normal enough, we will continue the series that we had started. But yeah, I'm glad we have this game, and we don't seem to be at a lack of finding things to discuss. So we'll do that tonight. All right, Jen.
All right. This first question's a little strange, but it could launch us off in an interesting discussion.
I like it. I like it already.
All right. It says, have you ever told someone I love you but did not mean it? If so, why?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I don't think intentionally. The first thing that popped in my wife, my ex-wife, my first wife, I thought I loved her. And I'm sure that I did in a way. I'm a loving person. So, there's all different kinds of love, as we know. I still care about her as a person. I haven't talked to her and there's no need to talk to her. But if something happened to her, I would hope that I would be there, if at least for support or something like that. But I did think that I loved her. And I didn't realize until it ended and I met Jen years later, I felt real love. And I have thought back to that and having said I love you, and I don't think that it was a lie. I don't think it wasn't something I was aware of that I was saying I love you and didn't. I don't think that there's anyone else that I've ever said that to where I didn't in some way love them. I mean, there's the throwaway love that people say to each other, love you. I even mean that. I won't say that unless I mean it. I try to love everyone, but so I can't think of anyone where I ever intentionally said I love you and didn't mean it.
Hmm.
Welcome to Burnt Flowers Fallen. We're glad that you're here. Thank you for stopping by.
Hello, hello, burnt flowers. I'm so jealous they get to meet Marisa soon.
Well, we will get to meet her, if not sooner, next summer when we go to our vacation spot, because we are doing that.
All right.
Yeah.
Boop, boop, boop. Okay, I'll go next.
All right. Go ahead, Jen.
This might, well, it's interesting. Something that you said made me think a little bit more about it as you were talking.
Okay.
So I started going to a non-denominational or evangelical church when I was like 21. And it seemed to be, part of me wonders if it's like a love bombing thing. I'm not sure, but everybody there was very friendly, but it was a little odd because you get a lot of people walking up to you and which is great, people introducing themselves and asking if it's your first time there and all that kind of stuff. But pretty soon out the gate, people were telling me that they loved me.
Mhm.
And it's something that I hadn't really experienced at church before. I
Right.
grew up in the Baptist church and went for a while to a Reformed church up in New Jersey. We lived there for like a year when I was younger, like 6.
Okay.
So there was a couple of times that I told people that I loved them back, and it was because I felt pressured to. I was like, if somebody tells you that they love you, it's like, oh, I love you too. But I didn't know these people. Now, if you think about it from the standpoint overall, I do love people, even strangers, people that I haven't met. Like I love people. But it was just one of those situations where it was awkward and I wasn't quite sure what to do, and it came out my mouth more than once. So that's my confession.
I think there's no judgment.
Okay, good.
Who'd like to go next?
I'll go next.
All right.
To my knowledge, no, I've never said that to somebody where I didn't mean it. Now, what I am guilty of is sometimes not acting like I truly love that person in whatever capacity is
Oh.
appropriate for that situation. I've been there
Okay.
and done that, but
Yeah.
in my heart, I've meant it. I don't like to say those words lightly or
Right.
just as filler in a conversation. So
Yeah.
Right. Nez, do you think it can be a throwaway, as I mentioned? Like it's something that people just say, it's like a knee-jerk reaction. I love you.
I think it's possible, and I think with the advent of social media, it's certainly become a little more rampant where you see a lot of people throwing "I love yous," and you got to wonder,
Yeah.
But yeah, I say it's possible, but
Yeah.
again, it's not something I take lightly, and
Right.
I hope that I haven't been guilty of saying that to somebody when I didn't mean it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
I know Glenn, and maybe that this is an Australia thing, but because we tell Glenn that we love him, and he has of yet not reciprocated, which I'm very
Right.
upset about.
Right.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But I know it's maybe it's an American thing. We're just a little more lovey-dovey than Aussies. I would love to hear his take
Yeah.
on that. I do think we throw it around too much.
Okay.
Our society over here, in my opinion.
Yeah. Maybe we do. What do you think, Glenn?
I think Jen's pretty right.
Oh.
I think well, from a personal perspective, I just try to act out of love to everybody if I can, to the best of my ability to do so.
Yeah.
But in terms of saying the words "I love you," to me that's a very intimate statement, and I keep it very reserved for the people who are really close to me, such as my wife, my kids. It's not that I don't feel love towards others, but I'm very guarded with whom I share it. And I do find that with Americans, and you hear it, you look at it on the occasional social media, this "I love you" sort of thing is a very throwaway line. What does it mean? It's just like a greeting or a parting, or to me it has I'm a bit reactive to it. I don't like it.
Okay.
I'm uncomfortable with it. It doesn't happen here. I've never. Maybe it happens in a younger generation, but certainly I see no evidence of it here in Australia, like all little
Okay.
evidence.
Yeah.
So it isn't to me. It's way intimate, and I don't like. I'd be very uncomfortable to throw it around.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's fair enough.
Yeah, that is fair.
All right.
All right. Well, this flies right into the next question. What is your definition of love?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, there are different types of love. So, I mean, someone who is being nitpicky might ask, well, what kind of love are you asking for the definition of, right? I won't do that. I would say, in general, for me, it is deep and abiding care for a person. And obviously, it can be different towards different people. And I would say further that I don't love anyone in the same way to the same depth that I love Jen. And I think that's reasonable. I love my sister and I love my nieces and nephew, but it's a different type of love than what I feel with Jen. I love my friends, anyone that's my friend. I love people in the chat, but also that's a different type of love. I think for me, it's just you care about the person. You are concerned when they're sick or when something happens to them, and you have compassion. You want to communicate with them from time to time, and as much as possible, you're happy to see them. You want to work out any kind of issues that come up rather than just letting it go and pretending it doesn't exist. Yeah, I mean that's all I can think of.
That's good.
All right.
Your definition of love. I'm gonna have to go after somebody else. I'm still munching.
Okay. Nez or Glenn want to take a shot at it?
I got you. Jamie Grace just said in the chat, love is having someone's best interest at heart.
Ooh.
And I agree with that 110%. For me personally, especially from a Christian perspective, having love for one another is caring about them to the point of their condition of their soul and their spirit, their spiritual well-being above anything else. And love entails many things. It means you'll forgive that person. It means you'll have compassion and mercy and patience with that person.
Wonderful.
So that's just all I wanted to add to that.
No, that's nice.
Lovely.
I appreciate that, Nez. All
Okay,
right.
my turn.
Okay.
My definition of love is pizza. I'm also going off of Jamie's comment. she said we do throw that out too much. Example, I love pizza. We use it for too many things. I agree.
Yeah.
It's almost like we need to dive back into our vocabulary and have a word of the day: toilet paper.
Wow.
So that we have other descriptive words for things that we really, really enjoy. I think on top of Jamie's comment, which Nez agreed with, having someone's best interest at heart, you guys might disagree, but there's something about accepting people that makes me think of love, fully seeing them and accepting them.
Oh, yeah.
There's something to that. But I also, like Nez, just love Jamie's definition. In a sense, it's having somebody's best interest at heart. Especially when it comes, like Nez mentions a lot on her channel, about loving the difficult people.
Yeah.
I think there's something very powerful about, I think we've all run into difficult people, or we have difficult people in our lives, whether it's a boss or family or a acquaintance or neighbors. And there's just something very powerful about loving difficult people.
Yeah.
So acceptance for me is really plays into that. It makes me think of some of the conversations and write-ups that we've had in the past where I think Glenn did the write-ups on this about you can't fully love someone else if you don't love yourself.
Right.
And so acceptance really plays into that. And I've been on this journey of finding love for myself, which a huge part of that is accepting me for who I am, where I'm at, with what I struggle with, my victories, my hurts, my past, just so many different things.
Right.
And acceptance of myself has played a huge role in discovering and walking out love for myself, and then the overflow onto the people around me.
Wow.
So
Great. Thank you, Jen. Overflow of the people around me. I love it. And
yeah, that's good.
You've heard me say that I just think you have the most loving heart. More than anyone I've ever met. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it just seems like, as I've mentioned to you several times, with everything that you have gone through, I would expect that to be somewhat diminished. Your capacity to openly share love and care for people, but doesn't seem to be the case. So thank you for sharing. What about you, Glenn?
Probably a slightly different approach. I do agree with what Jamie said. I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
I'm sort of not on your page where you say and you can correct me if I'm wrong. You say that you love Jen more. Is that am I taking that correctly?
I think I said in a deeper way that's different than, say, love for my sister or my niece. I do love them, but I think in an intimate relationship or a marriage relationship, I expect it to be a little different than the type of love that I have for other people. Does that help?
Okay, fair enough. That's I can align with that. I think if you try to love and act out of love equally to everybody, but that's to my mind the first thing. But obviously the form of relationships are different.
Yeah.
And you're much more. It's a much more intimate thing with Jen as it is for me with Sandra, etc. And same for other people. You form different kinds of relationships.
Right.
But I don't think people who say, "Oh, I love them more." I think if you can try to love everyone the same and act towards out of love to everybody as best you can, I think that's better than trying to put someone on a pedestal.
Right.
Yeah, and you've talked about that before, Glenn.
We have. It's the Marianne Williamson philosophy of that tape that your mum gave me.
Yeah, one of my mom's favorites, Marianne Williamson.
Yeah, and I think that made a huge difference to me in attitude.
Yeah.
To think, well, I don't actually love Sandra more than anybody else. It's just that our existence is way different to what it is with most other people.
Right.
Like with me and someone else. So I'm not, and I think that does mitigate a sense of, it allows you to have loving relationships with a lot of other people. For sure, absolutely, and I think it's better. I think it's putting people up on above others. I think it's fraught with the opportunity that it's going to cause a lot of grief and a lot of loss when the time comes. So, if you're asking me how much loss am I going to feel a lot of loss when Sandra goes? Yes, but it's not going to kill me. It's not going to destroy me. And whereas if you put someone on that ultimate pedestal and they fall off it, where does that leave you?
Right.
So,
I mean, I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree with that. Not that it matters, of course, but I don't feel like I'm. And you're not saying this. I'm just responding to what you're saying. I don't feel. I know the difference of putting someone on a pedestal, and I don't feel like I'm doing that. I know that as much as I love Jen and as much as I think she's an amazing person, and I'm sure that I'm quite right about that, I think it's dangerous to put someone on a pedestal. And the way I see it, putting someone on a pedestal is you're elevating them to a point where they can fall off, and you're not looking at them as a fallible human. It's like it's something different. It's definitely not a pedestal. I know Jen has her own faults, and she's human. We all are. We all make mistakes. We all fail, and I'm certainly aware of that. I'm certainly aware of that in myself. But I don't think that that's what kind of love that it is. I'm trying to think if I've ever done that. I didn't do that in my first marriage either. I realized that she definitely was flawed. So there was nowhere for her to fall, like from a pedestal. But anyway.
Yeah, Rachel just said, and I thought that was an excellent comment. Some, like a mother, for example, may have a military style love with her child. Cold, unnurturing, but a type of love, I guess. Yeah, well, my ex-wife was loved military style by her mother, not quite so much by her father, and it destroyed her, and she's still destroyed after we've been divorced, 20 plus years. What happened with her is that she just can't exhibit it. She does not have that part within her that can be nurturing, which is, like, I mean, it's generational.
Right.
Oh, the thought of a parent not being, wielding a whip rather than giving the comfort and the warmth and love and joy to a child is just, to my mind, just so cringeworthy. It's just horrible to think of it.
I mean, it's incredible that people can do that. It seems like you would be able to show some kind of love that's not a military style, but I certainly understand how that would crush a person. I don't think people should be like that, obviously. I can only imagine what that would be like. I mean, my parents are flawed, but I don't feel like they love like that. Now, my grandmother, my mom's mom, I don't know how military like her love was, but it definitely was cold, and it damaged my mom too, as you know. So it's no good. Anyone else want to comment on that?
I guess the military style is military style love. What would you define that as? Like just being militant and lacking the nurturing side of it?
No, like Sergeant Major in boot camp. Tough love.
Gotcha.
Just that you don't cry. You cry if you're weak. All this kind of bullshit.
Yeah. Gotcha.
No, it's horrible.
Yep. Nez, do you want to comment on that at all?
I agree with the military style love, the tough love. I think that real tough love is when you're loving somebody who isn't being very loving towards you. That's tougher. And that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
I don't understand the people that are hardened to the point where they really can't be loving to even their most intimate relationships in their life, whether it's a spouse or a family member, or especially a child. I can't even imagine having that with my children. I've been nothing but just so happy to have them, and Mama still sets the rules from time to time, but I couldn't imagine having them go through some of the things that I went through. So, and I think people who take that attitude, the hard ass sergeant major type nonsense, I think those people are just hit and hurt from their own situations of toxicity and abuse they may have encountered earlier in their lives.
That's a good point. I agree with that completely. I think that's generally true about all parents. They parent from however they were brought up a lot of times, whatever affects their own parents had on them, they tend to operate out of that. I think that it's somewhat natural, but I would hope that if your parents weren't very good to you, you would do the opposite. You would try to be better to your own child than they were to you.
It's interesting how that plays out, because I've seen families where it's a more militant or disciplinary or cold, and then the kids have learned how to love more warmly and nurturingly, if that's a word, based off of what they experienced as kids from their parents. But then I've also seen where it's passed down.
Right.
There's more of a lacking of nurturing, more cold and distant, and then the children walk that out with their kids. And it's so interesting to me psychologically, like how that happens. It can go one way or the other.
I would agree. Thank you, Jen. Jamie said, so Jamie's talking about tough love. Tough love is holding a personal accountable for their actions because you love them and refuse to enable them. So I don't know how much time we want to spend on this. Do you guys agree? What are your thoughts on tough love? Because she brings up an interesting thing. I have my own views on it, but I'll wait to see what everyone else says. Anyone want to comment on their feelings, if any, about the term tough love and whether that's helpful or useful?
I agree with Jamie.
Interesting.
Because you think of the child who is never feels that they have the power to be themselves, because they're always beholding and being, what's the word, assessed, or there's another word for it, judged, or any of those words, in accordance with, have they done what the parents want them to do? They've got no freedom.
Right.
If they don't do what the parents say, they get punished.
Right.
I mean, what does that put into your head? Not something particularly good,
right,
where I can see it. But the whole idea
then
no way. That the whole idea with kids is you want them to grow up and be nurtured, encouraged to develop their own ideas and their own thoughts. But whilst the parents are there not to tell them what to do and how to do it. They're there for guidance, encouragement, gentle, not, go to your room and don't come out, or go to the cupboard underneath the stairs and don't come out and you're not getting dinner. How does that work? No, sorry, ridiculous.
Yeah, it sort of cultivates a performance-based love.
Yeah.
That's it. That's a brownie point love, isn't it? It's not love. It's not love. That's the thing. This isn't love. It sounds more like hate, to be honest.
Right.
Agreed.
Maybe I'm confused, but so, I mean, I agree with your comment, but what is that? How does that relate to tough love? Maybe I'm not understanding you.
Well, the idea of tough love is basically withholding love,
right?
Isn't it? Isn't that the deal? Military style, cold, but do as I say in boot camp. This isn't love. It's tough love, but it's not really love at all. So I think that's the main point here.
Oh, okay. So I take Jamie's meaning, and she can correct me. She's saying tough love is holding a person accountable for their actions because you love them and refuse to enable them. Not saying that she's wrong. I just have a different opinion of that. I don't think that you have to be tough on a person to not enable them. It may be tough for the person who's not being enabled. But when I think of tough love, I remember back in the 80s, this was a popular thing, and I think it was based on a book that came out, Tough Love. And when that book came out, a lot of parents were trying to enact this quote unquote tough love. And I remember hearing a story about a kid who was smoking marijuana. Now, whatever your opinions about marijuana, you're entitled to them. do obviously have your own opinions, but this particular story was that they found marijuana in the kid's room, and rather than having a talk with them and working it out and explaining to them, hey, we don't allow marijuana in the house. If you want to smoke it outside, or whatever they would say to them, they turned them over to the police. Now, I don't agree with that. I don't think that was helpful. And hearing the rest of the story and what happened to the person, it wasn't helpful. I don't consider that sort of thing tough love. Now, there are situations where someone is a heroin addict or something, and they keep coming back, and they give them money and enable them and things like that, and it causes a real bad situation and a very dysfunctional relationship that can destroy families. I'm not saying that parents should enable behavior like that. Another example is having a curfew, and this could be seen more as a consequence maybe, but having a curfew that the kid needs to be home at a certain time, and if they're not, the door's locked and they don't let them in. They're banging on the door trying to get in, and they consider that tough love. I could never do that. I couldn't lock my kid out, especially in the wintertime, not let the kid in the house. Then the question is, well, what do you do then if the kid's not responding to the curfew or the rules? Well, I would have my own ideas about that, but for me, it wouldn't be to use tough love in a way that, could potentially endanger their life. Lastly, I'll say there was one story about parents that were using tough love, and their kid got in some kind of trouble. I think it was vandalism or something like that. And they thought, well, let's teach him a lesson. And they didn't bail him out of jail. He wasn't a hardened criminal or anything like that, but they threw this kid in jail with hardened criminals, and they killed him. He died in jail.
Gosh.
So to me, there has to be some logic and some what I would consider common sense within parenting. And I think that tough love, I agree with Glenn. It's not, to me, it's not really love. Now, I agree with what Jamie is saying about accountability and not enabling. Agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's my understanding of what tough love is. Does anyone want to comment on that? No? Okay. I'd like to say hello to everyone who popped in the chat. Welcome. We're glad that you're here. Thank you for stopping by. I'm sure everyone has an opinion about tough love. Put it in the chat if you want to. Okay, we can move on. No one wants to. My feelings aren't hurt or anything.
Are you sure?
I love
our silence is tough love.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I guess you're going to be ahead and showing me some tough love by not engaging him on a conversation about tough love.
All right. You guys ready? The next one?
I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay. So the question I have to rephrase a little bit, but I'll just read it as is. What do you feel we struggle with in our relationship? So I guess we could apply with anyone. Or maybe you could say, what do I feel I struggle with in my relationships?
Well, I have a good one.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't want to keep going first, but does anyone else want to go first? Okay.
Oh, well.
Oh, go ahead, Glenn.
Well, I don't really struggle with stuff, but I can think of a thing that people do struggle with is dealing with when the other person has a difference of opinion.
Right.
How do you deal with that? It can either turn, Coco, stop it. Coco, he's got his bloody paw stuck in my coat again. My coat's like a bloody Swiss cheese.
Uh-oh.
Come on, Coke. Oh, hang on. Oh, I'll have to turn around. Come on, Coco. Hang on, give me your foot. Okay.
Give him some tough love.
I can't spank him. He won't like it.
He won't like it.
He's in charge.
That's
Okay,
the
what was the
problem,
question?
Glenn. You're enabling.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh,
That's true.
so
I'll
it
give you
was
that.
what do you feel you struggle with, or what people struggle with within
Well,
relationships?
okay, I said when people have a difference of opinion from what you do,
Yes.
essentially. How do you deal with differences of opinion? A lot of people struggle because they don't like it when they don't get their own way.
Hmm.
So, and you know how I said we deal with it easy. The power of veto. That works a
Yeah.
charm. It's an absolute mind blower, because it forces you to find compromise. You
Yeah.
have to find compromise. You
Right.
can't escape it. And if you don't speak up, you shut up.
Right.
It's so simple, but so difficult for many people because they get angry in a huff, go on the defensive, start sulking. You know how all these emotions work,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and get pissed off rather than front up and say, "Well, okay, I acknowledge that we think differently. How are we going to deal with it?"
Yeah.
That's my input. You can take it where
Wow.
you want to.
Yeah. That's to me that seems very reasonable. In fact, I'll say I think that if you had been my parent, um, I'm quite sure that I would have been a lot healthier sooner. I could be wrong about that, but that's how I
Oh
feel.
yeah, but I did have some good therapy.
Right. Right. Yeah. I understand that.
Yeah, I wasn't like that before that. No, I was exactly how I suggested there. I was the argumentative, you're an idiot sort of person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Sure.
yeah, yuck.
Well, at least you got therapy and you're a person that is willing to grow and change while other people don't seem to be very interested in that. I say that, and to be fair, I'll answer next because I was going to talk about. Can you read the question again, Jen, so I don't get off?
Yeah, yeah. So it says, what do you feel we struggle with in our relationship? We kind of reworded it. It could be about yourself, me and you,
Right.
or you with anybody else. Or what do you feel like people struggle with in their
Yeah.
relationships?
So, in talking about my dad, to be fair, he has changed a little bit. And I don't know if it's just because he's gotten older and he doesn't have the same vigor as he did before to harp on things and things like that. I really don't know. Maybe it is that he's genuinely changed and it has nothing necessarily to do with that he's just older. But I certainly have noticed with him, he's not as critical uh, as he was before. Maybe it's that I've changed, and when he is critical, it doesn't have the same effect on me. I think both could be true. I don't know. But my issue with him as a father is that I've watched him, and not just with me, but with other people in the relationship, hold other things higher than the relationship itself. For instance, work. And I've always had an issue with that, and it has had a negative effect on me to the point where I had made a decision. I think it's a good decision that work will never come before relationships, and I hold strongly to that. Meaning, a job's important. You have to have a job in order to live in this world, unfortunately, but that's the way that it is, and I understand that. I've accepted that. But if I was at work and some catastrophe happened to Jen or one of my nieces or my sister or anyone that I care about, I would be willing to leave work to take care of that. To give an example, I worked a lot for my dad growing up, and one time I shot a nail through my thumb, a little 2-inch pass load air gun nail, um, and it went through the bone, and it was very painful, obviously, and it bled a good bit, and he was irritated that he was going to have to take off work to take me to the hospital. Um, I'll never forget that. And then in the hospital, when they told him how much it was going to be, he was irritated about how expensive this was. and this was an accident. It wasn't me being stupid. There was a vent in the floor, and they didn't have a metal grate over the vent. It was just an open hole, and I was putting in a piece of baseboard, and they had paper on the hardwood floor, which they often do, and I didn't see it because it was covered up and there was no hole there. So I'm kneeling on the ground, and I've got my one hand holding the piece of baseboard to the wall and my other hand holding the air gun with the nails in it, and I'm nailing the piece of baseboard in. Well, my knee went in that open air conditioning register.
Oof.
And it went down, and I had my hand on the baseboard and the gun in my hand, and I went to go nail it. Knee goes in the hole, and I popped the nail right into my thumb. The point of that story is that you're around someone that seems to be more interested in work than they are your well-being. And there's a lot of stories about that. But as I said, don't know if it's age or what. He still works all the time, but it seems like his attention for people is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see that. But that has been an issue my whole life, is him not coming to plays, and or coming but late because he was at work. And it certainly is one of the reasons why my parents divorced, the first time at least, was because work was more important. My mom called work his mistress. So he didn't have a physical affair with a person. His affair was with work. And it caused problems, obviously. And I vowed never to have that happen, where work would be more important than any relationship, or that would be an addiction to the point where I would be working when the person I love needs me. Okay. That's it.
All right.
Nez?
Yes. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Please?
What do you feel you or people struggle with in their relationships?
I think there's a lot of struggle on my part and many other people with establishing boundaries,
Ooh.
keeping your heart in check, not giving it away too soon, too much too soon. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I've had to work on that in my life. Not that you can't love people, but you can be wise, you can be cautious, you can, keep your eyes open and keep your feet on the ground.
Good stuff.
Keep reaching
like
for the
that.
stars.
And hello, Dana, the Conscious Evolution channel. Hi, honey.
Yeah.
Hey, Dana.
Welcome. I felt bad because last week Dana was in the chat, and I don't remember saying hello to him. And at the end, the very last comment on last Sunday's broadcast was, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't make more of a point to say hello to you." So I know Nez said it already, but hello, Dana. We're glad that you're here. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for stopping by. We appreciate you. Well, there you go. All right. Jen, did you answer on?
I did not.
Okay, you're up.
Okay, so I would say being direct. I really struggle with my family with being direct about my feelings. I have echoes of "you're too sensitive" kind of ringing in my head. So then it makes me very hesitant to share my feelings because I'm concerned. And of course I do get, I'm still working on me and learning that, again, other people's feelings or even their reactions to me are not my responsibility. My responsibility is to be authentic and genuine and direct in love. So I run into this a lot with my family. My feelings might get hurt, or I want to share something like currently, my parents are getting older, and as I've been healing through past stuff, there's some things I'd like to share with my dad. And there's still this almost like a shadow of emotional stuff clouding my own mind and heart that dates back to being a child and not feeling like I could go to him and share or talk. He wasn't super open when we were younger. And even in my adult life, he's made a few comments about how he just has a hard time connecting with that emotional side or sharing, emotional stuff. And so there's a part of me that doesn't want to make him uncomfortable. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to have regret. I don't want him to, when he does pass, to regret not talking to him about things.
Yeah.
And so I think being direct with people and sharing how you feel, whether it's positive or negative or somewhere in between. I know that's something I struggle with, and I think a lot of people do, because I see patterns in my family where people just aren't direct. It's sort of this beat around the bush sometimes. And sometimes I wonder if my family has the same issue I do, because they will make comments before they say something like, this might hurt your feelings, or I don't mean this way, before they share. It's almost like they preface it with these phrases. And I've taken it in the past as they think my feelings are going to get hurt, and that's why they've said it, which sort of reinforces the echo of that particular phrase, you're too sensitive. And I'm like,
Yeah.
But I just, I think being direct is a gift that we can give ourselves and other people.
Yes, it's both.
And then what it does too is it sort of disengages this pattern that a lot of families have, where you're keeping a record of wrongs or feelings that
Right.
tend to build up, and they accumulate, and then you blow.
Right.
I think if we could all learn to share how we're feeling as soon as we feel it, like Jason and I do that, and it works beautifully. But you kind of have to have two people on both ends that recognize that this is a safe place. It's not the end of anything.
Right.
And that there is a genuine want for people to be open and share as soon as they feel something.
Yeah.
Because when one person is volatile or sensitive or defensive, or all kinds of different things, that one person can be safe or feel safe enough to share, and the other person takes it the wrong way really easily, or all
Right.
kinds. So there's so many different scenarios, but
Sure.
I just feel like being direct and open with each other is very good. And I wish my family had more of that kind of pattern.
Yeah.
I think it would benefit everybody.
Me too. That's a really good point that you're making. I agree completely. I think it's essential for a relationship to be healthy, being direct in love with all things, and in friendships and just relationships in general, being direct. It is something that you and I practice, and even if it's something you struggle with, you've proven that you can get better at it, even if it was an issue before. And people saying, or you perceiving, either way, both, that you're too sensitive. I don't think you're too sensitive at all. And I feel like, at least with me, you were pretty direct right away. I know you shared that you may have waited a while to talk to me about things that you thought might be issues, but that's not an issue anymore.
Nope.
Things come up. You are direct and honest with me, and loving.
Yeah.
All the time. And I think it's easier to do it with someone who you trust, that you're in a relationship with, that you know that you can trust.
Yeah.
But my goal is to be that way with everyone, regardless of whether I can trust them or not. That's really the best choice, Jen. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Takes practice.
Yeah, sure does. Kim Maple Syrup. What a great name. Kim Maple Syrup. So, Kim, you have to share. Well, you don't have to. I would love for you to share what you have to do with maple syrup. The reason I'm asking is because, do you sell maple syrup? Do you tap trees and produce the maple syrup yourself? Do you just love maple syrup? What is the story behind your moniker?
We love stories.
I'd love to know. I mean, Nez posted a link to her channel, so I'll have to go over there and check it out and see if there's an answer to my question in the first place. But I'd love for you to answer in the chat if you feel up to it. All right. Did everyone answer that last question?
Yeah.
Does anyone want to comment on what Jen said about being direct? Okay. All right. Next question.
All right. This one could be interesting. It doesn't have to be me again. I think this card game was meant for two people.
Yeah, it was. When we said that at the beginning, we all understand, and you can adjust the question to fit how you want to answer.
Absolutely. We're very whimsical here. This next question, what is your worst memory of me?
My worst memory is the one time that you called. This is before you moved here, and we'd been talking quite a bit, and pretty much established a pattern of when we talk and message back and forth and things like that. And I had been up late the night before, and I had overslept, but you had been worried about me because you had messaged me and hadn't heard anything, and you called me and I didn't answer, and you left a voicemail, which I still have on my phone. And you were very upset because you couldn't get a hold of me, and it broke my heart. That
it scared me. I wasn't upset like mad. I
thought
something had happened to you.
No, thanks for clarifying. No, I didn't mean that you were upset like that. And it just was excruciating to hear the fear and concern in your voice, but it also, that really gave me an idea of how much you cared about me, that you would react like that. So that was the worst memory, just my reaction to that, of hearing that in your voice, and I don't ever want to hear that again, if at all possible. It just is hard. It's hard to hear someone distressed in that way, and certainly earlier in our relationship and getting to know you and things, it's the first time I'd ever heard anything like that, and I haven't heard that type of concern.
Except the other night, was it last night? We were watching Deadwood, and I went to the bathroom, and I didn't realize Jason couldn't find the remote to pause it, and there was some guy that got shot, and he's like gurgling, and the TV's like kind of loud, and Deadwood doesn't have a lot of music in the background. It's just mostly acting and the sounds of the saloon and the horses out on the street. And I thought Jason was choking. I was on the toilet. And I was like, Jason, I totally freaked out. I thought something bad was happening, and I couldn't get up off the toilet fast enough. It was hilarious. It wasn't at the time. I literally, it freaked me out. And I don't do that often. That's not, I don't have negative fears running through my head all the time, but it was late and I was tired, and my heart was racing. But it's so funny that you mentioned that one particular memory, because that, when I read the question, that was the same memory I was thinking of.
Oh, wow.
So
that's interesting. Great. We'd like to say hello to Christ is the Truth, our friend, and they are in the chat. Welcome. We're glad that you're here. And they say, you guys rock. You guys seem like a great couple. Well, thank you. I appreciate your perception. It's wonderful. Thank you for saying so. All right. Who's up next for this question?
All right. I don't have any. What? No. What's the worst memory? No worst. The pain in the ass. I can give you the pain in the ass one.
That could be one. All right, give us an example.
The pain in the ass is Jen saying, "I've had an epiphany." Oh yeah, it's all come together. And 2 days later, Jen's had a meltdown. Oh shit, not again. Oh, the record's
Hey,
back on.
hey, we're trying to get rid of the she's too sensitive label here.
Oh, and I was going to Sandra, Jen's had a meltdown.
That's funny. One of mine, I'll add another one, is when the whole TSL thing kind of fell apart for a time there, and we didn't have our show for like a year.
Yeah.
That was really sad. That wasn't a good memory.
No.
I mean, I know everything happens for a reason, but that was tough.
Yeah, it was. All right. Ness.
For you, Jen, I don't know you as well as everybody else on panel does, but it was hard for me when you went through that rough time with your parents when they brought up all those horrible things to say at just the wrong time. And I think you know what time I'm talking about. It was just a bombardment of shit, and I felt really bad for you then.
Oh, thank you, Nez.
Oh.
Yep.
It was really rough. I'm glad everything happens for a reason, because there's been some healing and growth on all of our parts, me and my parents, through that. But that was really hard. Oh my gosh. I appreciate that, Ness. Thank you.
Okay. Everybody answered that one?
Yes, sir.
Moving on.
On to the next. What is a dream you have let go of?
Oh. Acting, being in Hollywood movies and directing movies. There was a period of time. In fact, my email for probably a decade used to be ActorQuest at msn.com. And I did do a lot of acting. And I'm grateful. I'm glad that I did that. I'm glad that I was involved in so many plays. I'm glad that I wrote plays that were actually produced on stage and directed and acted and all of that. I did all of that. And I'm grateful that I was able to do that. But I had some aspirations of, moving out to Hollywood and, going on auditions and things like that. And I did do one audition, and I did get in one movie, and it was great. And it was a very fulfilling time being an extra in the Talladega Nights, Will Ferrell and Michael Clark Duncan and the other guy who played Borat or Borat, however you want to say it. Sacha Baron Cohen is his name. Just came to me. Yeah, this is something I carried around with me for a long time that I have completely let go of. It's not that I don't have. If Jen and I lived in that area, I think I would still think it would be fun to audition for a few things and see if I ever got in anything. And if a movie ever comes to the area again, and they do film here in this area, I might audition and see if I got in somewhere. But to pick up and move all the way to LA or that area and try to make it as a career, I've given up on that.
All right. Trying to think. I'll share next if nobody else wants to go.
All right.
Having a child, and I'll explain, like, it still might happen, and that's totally awesome if it does. But I used to have a dream of being a mom, but I was desperate for it for a handful of reasons. But I think I had way too much of my identity tied up in becoming a mom. And it was almost like air, that feeling of just grief when I would think about if it didn't happen. Like I just had a hard time imagining being able, this is going to sound super dramatic, sorry, but just being able to live life without having that experience. And I had an epiphany. That's for you, Glenn. Like, back in like 2017, I think. And I don't know if it was something somebody said. I have no idea, but I sort of let it go because I was recognizing that I was putting so much pressure on myself on this dream, but even on this little person that doesn't even exist yet. I was recognizing that there was so much oomph behind it, for lack of a better word, just this desperation of becoming a mom, and so much of my identity tied into it. I sort of saw, sometimes you see down the path, like if you keep going that direction. And I thought, this is a recipe for disaster. Because it does put a lot of pressure on another person, when you have so much tied up in to becoming a mother.
Right.
And so I sort of pulled it back into a healthier place. And over the next few years came to peace with the fact, like, if it happens, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, I'm okay,
Yeah.
and that's okay. And I can pour into children around me, whether they're nieces or nephews, or, other people's kids, other friends' kids or family.
Yeah.
And that I'll be okay. I truly felt like if I don't have a child, I'm not going to be okay.
Right.
Now, at the time, I was married to my ex, and I think I fell into that trap that many people do when they're in a relationship that's not healthy and it's toxic, where you think having a child will change the other spouse,
Right.
like it's going to wake them up or heal them somehow, or open up their heart to love, like real love, all these different things that, movies portray and books and
Right.
other people experience, or display. And
Right.
so, do you get where I'm going with this question?
Oh yeah.
So it's a dream I still have, but in the sense of maybe like an unhealthy attachment to a dream, I've let that go.
Yeah. No, that's good. I thought you explained that very well.
Thank you.
And if you hadn't mentioned, I was even going to say that you have shared with me before that I think that the reason why you held so tightly to that is because, first of all, it was a loveless marriage. And if you would have had a child, you would have at least had someone that in that marriage that loved you. And you also just now added that you thought it might make things better. I think we both know that it probably wouldn't have. And in some ways, I'm glad that you didn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you did, I would love your child as if he or she was my own.
Yeah.
That's who I am. But as you've pointed out, the downside would be that if you have a child with someone, it pretty much, well, I guess not pretty much, not in every case, but it means that you're
It tethers you
right,
to
tethers
them.
you. That's a better
Yeah.
word. Yeah.
The other thing I was going to add is that, I've for a long time, I've really hated the movie Jerry Maguire because of that line, "You complete me."
Right.
But it's interesting in this particular context. I think I thought a child would complete me.
Right.
And that's a better, shorter way to explain it.
Sure.
And that's I don't think that's healthy.
Right.
I do think that children change us, and in so many ways, and challenge us, and there's all these things, but with becoming whole, I think that's a lot of pressure to put on any other person, but a child,
Sure.
my goodness, it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for sharing that, Jen.
Yeah.
All right. Who's up next?
I'll go.
All right.
It's a little difficult to answer this question from a Christian perspective because the God I worship is a God of miracles, and God can make anything happen.
Yeah.
So I try to just leave things up to God, and what happens, happens.
Yeah.
But just for me personally, I don't think I'm someone who's meant to be married, at least right now. I'm not saying it couldn't ever happen, but I don't think I'll be going to the bridal shop anytime soon. I've kind of let that one go. So there you go.
Thanks for sharing, Nez. You know, I really, I don't feel obligated to say this, but I do want to say some person would be so lucky to have you.
Oh, yeah.
I think you're great.
Thank you so much. I'm just a mean old lady. What can I say? I don't play well with others, you know. Ask my exes.
Well, you do with us. You're great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh. What about you, Mr. Glenn?
Not a dream as such. You don't really have dreams other than literal dreams. There's nothing in there that I've given up. I probably just can't do the things that Sona and I wanted to do together. It's not possible anymore.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty obvious answer.
Right.
You know, doing things. It's okay. I'll probably try to get to do some things with Jonathan, my son, probably more than so than Michael, but it's not the same.
Right.
When there's not the other person there, because you're sort of faced with that thought that I suppose you can call it, you feel guilty, conscience, whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Even though you need a break you need a break, and you've got there's other people in your life. It still doesn't leave you with that 100% feeling that you're sort of leaving someone at home.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I definitely get it. And putting myself in that situation, I feel like it'd be very hard. Here's the catch-22, so to speak. I realize that I'm not the one in your situation, but I definitely, from the outside, I can see and understand that a person that's in that situation and taking care of someone they love, they have to have some time, in my opinion. Otherwise, you just get burnt out, and then you're no good for anyone, not for yourself or the person you're taking care of. On the other hand, too, leaving a person and trying to have a good time somewhere, and that person is unable to come, unable to share that with you. To use your word, I would be gutted by that. It would be very, very difficult. So there's the necessity of doing it, knowing that you need to do that, and then doing it. And as you mentioned, knowing that the other person isn't there to share that with you, and leaving them alone and all that. I just think that's a tough call. Hard yards indeed.
Yeah, I just wonder how some people do it. I mean, my situation compared with some people, there's nothing. Although it's obviously something, but it's not like some people have to go through. It's just you just see. I think in these situations you see other people's adversity, like the guy next door and his wife who's got half of her organs shot out and all that, and see her standing on the deck a couple of days ago, and she's smiling and she's not looking too bad, and just thinking about what she's dealing with every day. I mean, for goodness sakes.
Right.
Amazing. Just amazing.
Yeah.
Resilience.
Right.
People. You don't have to look far, do you?
No. Wow. Goodness gracious. Thank you, Glenn. I want to say quick hello to Okie Grower. Welcome.
Hello, Okie.
Here. Christ of the Truth says, I've had a lot of things I wanted to happen but didn't, and in the end I'm glad it didn't, because it's all in God's hands anyways, and he knows what's best. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, even the thing that I mentioned, the acting, part of the reason why I don't have any interest in that is because I learned more about the way things work in Hollywood, and not just, the weird conspiracy theory stuff, but just the way that they treat people in that business, chewing them up and spitting them out, so to speak. Same thing with the music business. There just are some downsides to being in that, being a star or whatever, being taken advantage of. John Fogerty, I recently watched a documentary on him. He was in CCR. He was the lead singer and writer for CCR. And it was a very interesting documentary. I love music, and so I love documentaries about the music. And he was saying that if you ever get in the music business, get a lawyer, and then get another lawyer to check up on that lawyer, and then get a third and fourth lawyer to check up on the other lawyers. And I understand, having watched the documentary, why he says that, because he was sued by his own band members and sued by the person that helped get him started, and just over and over and over again it happened. And how can you enjoy your life? You have all this stardom, and people really like your music, and they think you're great, and money from that, and people trying to take that away from you as well, and then you're in court all the time defending what you've earned. I wouldn't want to live like that. It really is a horrible situation to be in. I think so. Anyway, I'm glad it happened the way it did. So thank you for your comment. They also say, yeah, I never really had dreams except for being famous when I was younger, and I'm glad that never happened, since fame can make you insane. I would agree. It can. I don't think it has to, but it can. Also, I didn't see John Don's creep in there. Welcome, John Don's.
Oh, John, hello.
He says, you guys can adopt me. I cry once in a while, and I'm only a few years from incontinence. Oh, goodness gracious. All right. Everyone answer that one?
I think so.
All right. Moving on.
Okay. This could be fun. Wait, let me know if I asked this at another show that we did. If you could start any business, what would it be and why? And chat, if you guys want to pop your answers in there, I'd love to know y'all's thoughts. If you could start any business, what would it be and why?
Now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I really would like to be a therapist like my mother. I feel like I'm really good at it. And my mom said to me when I was a kid, she told me that you're a natural therapist. And this is long before she got into it herself. And she said that because when she was sad, I tried to make her feel better. And I did that with my friends too. If they were upset about something, I was always trying to be helpful, not in an unhealthy way, but just I cared about them and I wanted things to be better. So if they were struggling with something, I would always try to talk to them, and that has never left. It's only increased.
You're a good listener.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The only problem is, and that was my plan. So when I went back to school later in life, my degree was major in social science, mainly psychology and sociology. So I had a choice of being I had several choices, actually, being a counselor or going into social work, and I didn't really want to go into social work. When I graduated, you've heard me tell this story before, but briefly, there was a recession and my plans were put on hold. And also I met my first wife and got married, and we struggled for the next 3 years. We were only together 3 years, and it was always a struggle till just right up until the end. And so I never went back to school to get my master's. And the reason, there are a lot of people that call themselves life coaches and things like that, and, teach his own. But to be really appreciated and respected, you kind of need a master's, in my opinion. And so I feel like I'm not qualified in that way, at least by having a piece of paper that says I can counsel. A little bit of sarcasm there, because I feel like you can be a counselor to anyone by just being a good listener and knowing how to handle a situation that another person's in. And I do that when it comes up. But in order to make it a career, I think it is naturally better to have a degree. And it may be something I do still. As Nez says, paraphrasing what she says, but God is the the father of the impossible, and miracles and things can happen that you never think will happen. But I feel like I've always been having to work. So when is there time to go to school? I mean, I can't afford that. We can't afford that. But it is something. That's the first thing that came to mind. I'll throw in a secondary thing that's probably more reasonable. I used to want to be in radio, and I was in radio for a year, and I loved it. Loved. It's one of the best jobs I ever had. It just didn't pay very well. And of course, here again, I had to work.
Yeah.
My wife at the time couldn't work because her depression and anxiety was crippling, and so she couldn't hold a job down. So it was all on me. And so I left that job to move back here to this area where jobs were more plentiful at the end of the recession. And that's what we did. And so goodbye to that job. But I would love to do voiceovers. I would love to do character voices and voiceovers for movies and commercials and things like that. I would just love to do that. There again, though, a lot of times you have to have a degree. Well, not as much as a psychologist or a counselor, or you have to know someone in the business that can help you get started. And I don't have either of those things. So it would be a miracle if that ever happened, because I'm certainly not going to move to LA. If I'm not going to do it to be an actor, I'm not going to do it to do voiceovers either.
Yeah.
But it could happen. Someone could hear my voice or hear Dr. Sleep and think, oh, this guy would do great with voiceovers or something. I mean, it's possible. I mean, there's plenty of stuff out there for people to hear if they run across it.
Anything's possible.
Yep. Okay. Someone else.
I'll be short. No. No business. I've got one. I've had one. I don't need another one.
Oh, nice.
Thanks.
All right.
Nez?
I want to have a studio that's both for fine arts and performing arts, a functioning studio / gallery where people's work could be performed and displayed, particularly for special needs people, specifically autism children.
Oh, wonderful.
My mom
Love
would
that.
love that, Marisa. She did. Both my sister and my mother worked in special needs in the public school system. My mom did it right after she got a degree for a while, and my sister did the same thing. She worked with special needs, and with their counseling business, they started together, which my sister has carried on. They had some special needs kids that they were helping. And just what a heart thing that is, to have a desire to help. They need that. They really do. I have a soft spot for that too. My mom, when she was alive, she was kind of encouraging me to take that same route when I graduated. It just didn't happen that way because of the things I've mentioned. I was interested in doing that because what I was told was that they hire there's a need for men to get into that, helping special needs. There's a lot of women that are interested in doing it, but not as many men, and they need that male role model, so to speak. Just never happened. Anyway, what a heartwarming thing, Nez. I love that dream.
Nez, do you have any names picked out for this studio? Have you thought that far?
I don't have a name picked out. It's a dream I haven't given up on yet.
Oh, I love that. That would be fantastic.
And I don't even care if it's a business or if it's nonprofit. I don't care. I just want it to happen. I want the facility and somehow the means to be able to do it.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I have many dreams. They're always changing. One thing I would love to do, it's not as humanitarian as Nez's dream. I guess it could be, maybe, I don't know. I have always wanted to have a studio, a photography studio, but also a business where I could have costumes. I love dress up. I've loved dress up since I was a little girl. And I follow a couple of Russian people in Russia that do this, but to have these medieval gowns or different costumes where you do portrait photography with wild animals. There's like bears and wolves and rabbits and foxes and I think, did I say owls? I will say it again because I love owls.
You didn't.
But I just think it would be wonderful. I always love the idea of using props and animals and costumes to sort of create a story within the portrait. I've done like, regular family portraits or bridal portraits and stuff before. But I would love to have the ability and the funds to kind of take it to this other sort of dreamlike level. And to travel and actually go to different locations and do photo shoots. Something I would just love to do. And back when I had an antique store, I had quite a collection of like vintage and antique clothes, gowns and bathing suits and all kinds of stuff. And so part of it was me sort of stockpiling for the daughter I wanted to have so that she could have just a kick-ass dress-up closet. We could dress up together. But part of it was portraits. And I actually did get to do some photo shoots with some friends that I had met through the store that were super tiny that could fit into these vintage clothes that were so small.
Yeah. Right.
But that just was so much fun to just be able to go out and dress them up and make different things for the costumes and props. And oh my gosh, I was on cloud nine, just loved it.
Wow.
Loved it. So that's definitely a business I would love to have.
Well, if you keep it up, you'll be able to fit in those very dresses yourself. You don't have to set up a camera somehow to take pictures of you.
I'll just take pictures of other people. Right. I like being behind the camera.
Right. All right.
Okay.
One more thing real quick. For this question, Jamie said, my current dream is to build a facility on the land I own to help women and children coming out of domestic violence or trafficking situations. Amazing, Jamie. And I already knew about that. You'd shared it with us. But there's such a need for that because there's a lot of people that suffer both those things, domestic violence and trafficking, etc. There are some groups out there that do that, but I don't think near enough with this.
I think there can always be more.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Jamie. All right, go ahead, Jen.
Anybody else in the chat sharing their dreams, business dreams?
I'll just check real quick. Nope.
All right, this could be a fun one. This might take y'all a sec to think about. Pick a movie title and use it to describe our relationship. This one's more fun. It's a mad, 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 mad world. What do you guys think?
I'm
gonna, while y'all are talking, I'm gonna run to the restroom. Okay.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking because I've got to think of a really good one. Gosh, does anyone else have one? Because that's seems like you have to think about that one more.
Blade Runner.
Oh.
Because sometimes I think you're a bit of a replicant.
Oh, okay. The electric sheep sleep.
That's it. Do androids think of,
I love the writer, Philip K. Dick, who wrote the story of which Blade Runner's based on, and many other movies, Minority Report, and many others. Read a lot of his books, but Blade Runner is probably one of my favorites. The story behind that is good. I really love the movies, and I even love the more recent one. What I thought was very good, and Harrison Ford and He was in it, and Ryan, what's his name?
Gosling.
Yeah, exactly. Did you enjoy that, Glenn?
Didn't like the second one as much.
Huh.
I don't particularly like it when they go to when you try to add a sequel onto an icon.
Yeah, I mean,
But it was
yeah.
all right. It was okay, but nah, I don't think so.
Okay, there you go. Nez, are you getting anywhere with thinking of a name of a movie to describe your relationship?
I'm getting absolutely nowhere. I don't know whether to give one for each of you. I don't know whether to pick another relationship. I'm still thinking.
um, huh?
Did you hear me?
No.
I said One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That
Which
came to me in the
relationship?
bathroom. All of ours.
All of what?
It was supposed to be a joke. You were
I
supposed to
know.
laugh.
Well, it is funny. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
How about Terms of Endearment?
Ooh,
That's a decent one.
that
wouldn't
was
be
good.
It wouldn't be Schindler's List for sure.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
That's not funny at all, Jason. As I'm laughing.
Oh no.
Let's see.
So Glenn said Blade Runner. I said Terms of Endearment. And
Dune.
Dune. You said One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Oki has a couple. He says Pineapple Express, Passenger 69. Yeah.
That was just a fun one to lighten the mood.
Yeah. All right.
Should I move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay, what is the most embarrassing moment we have had together? It's a fun one.
Do you want to go first? Can you think of an embarrassing moment? You probably have more than I can think of because, frankly, I have felt, and I say this in love, I have felt that you have in the past seemed to be embarrassed pretty easily. I could be wrong, but
why can't I
He's
think of
right.
one?
The red face, Jen.
Oh no, me under the table. Okay, that was very embarrassing with Glenn and Jason. My gosh, Glenn was trying to take a picture of me and I was hiding under the table. It's like, no.
Yeah, we have that picture, and it's one of my favorites.
Gosh.
Seeing her with her hand over her face, and it was the first picture I saw of Jen, other than what was on Facebook. It was more recent picture at that time.
Trying to think if there was anything embarrassing that happened when Glenn and Sandra came to visit. I don't think there was, though. Yeah, I think this question might be more for people that hang out in person a lot more.
Yeah.
It's,
let's
I think we're able to like hide our embarrassing situations over online a lot easier than if we're in person.
Right. Yeah.
Let's see. What was your first impression of me? This could be for anybody in the chat or us on the panel or both. It's a good one. What was your first impression of me?
Well,
I thought you were a hard ass.
Oh.
When we first started the show, there was Jason's previous co-host, Brenda. Sometimes she had noises going on in the background while they were doing the show, and he would get on her and he'd call her right out on it. And I was like, whoa. That was when your edges are a little harder.
Well, that's true, but I was direct. I didn't, pretend like it was like totally fine, but I was, yeah. So just for people that are listening, so this person, and I love her. She's a wonderful person, and without her, without her being on the show, I don't know how Jen and I would have gotten to know each other better, because we were in the Facebook group together and we didn't notice each other. But um, because she wanted to take a break for the summer, that's how Jen and I got a chance to know each other, because she found a replacement, which happened to be Jen. And that's how Jen came to be on True Story Live as well. And it was wonderful. But when she was on, one of the things she had a grandfather clock that was set at the wrong time. And it seemed to, our broadcast is only 2 hours, but it seemed like it went on the quarter hour. I it just seemed to go off all the time. And she would do dishes with the live mic. So we're trying to talk about these topics, and there'd be Brenda like clanking the dishes and the water running and all of that while the broadcast was going on. It is a pet peeve of mine. It is for broadcast, because it obviously
it distracts.
It distracts from what we're talking about. And Glenn's done it too. Not so much anymore, but he has his phone turned. I mean, I keep my phone on vibrate when I'm on a broadcast, because in case someone calls me and it doesn't come out over the mic and we're in the middle of talking about something and it rings out loud. And I certainly understand if someone needs to hear the phone, if someone's in an emergency situation and all of that. But yeah, that's all you can hear is the bleeding phone ring. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make you usher you into defending yourself.
I'm not defending myself. I'm saying
okay.
I'm saying that it's irritating. I'm saying why it's irritating. Yeah. Well, I guess
Oh my gosh.
defending myself. You're not wrong though. I mean, I understand why you would think that.
You know what it is? I have struggled my whole life with being probably too polite. That
right.
the people pleaser in me, and so I just guffawed, because I was like, I don't know if I'd ever have the balls to like call somebody out. Like, it just was like so flabbergasted. I'll go around the table here with Nez. Nez, from the get-go, I just saw you as a ray of sunshine. And I'm not trying to make your head big or blow smoke up your butt or anything, but you just were, from the get-go, were so welcoming, so involved, just very positive. And I just loved that about you, and so encouraging of other people. And it's genuine. It doesn't come across, fake or flattery or anything like that. It just is so genuine. And Glenn, oh my gosh, Glenn, and he's done this to multiple people, but when we first started talking, the three of us in a group chat, he dove right in to the deep stuff. And it was a little bit scary, but at the same time, it was so refreshing. I just have never met anybody like Glenn before, and he just dove right in, and it was almost like having something that you never knew you always needed.
Oh.
And the conversations that we had in the beginning, I think there was one time I wrote you guys and I just was bawling, because I've always grown up very curious, but also wanting to talk about the deep stuff. And I felt like I was surrounded by people my whole life that just had no concern about it, or no, what's the word I'm looking for? Passion or want or desire. That's the word I was looking for. The desire to talk about things and ask hard questions and dig into stuff. And Glenn just so unabashedly jumped right in. It was like there was a part of me that was scared, but there was another part of me that was exhilarated by it. And it was challenging, and I had mentioned to him that I had a therapist while I was married before, that maybe had one question that was like that through the whole hour session, but he was really good at asking questions that really made me think, and even from a different perspective than I normally did. And Glenn's over here with the think tank and firing it out like a cannon on steroids from a pirate ship. And I just was like, this is awesome. It was great. It was very refreshing. That was my first impression of Mr. Glenzo.
Well, and frankly, I thought you did very well encountering that type of thing for the first time and answering his questions. You know,
Yeah.
being willing to go there, so to speak.
Yeah. I think it could potentially offend some people.
Yeah.
But I wasn't offended at all.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jen, you came across as very soft and vulnerable, nice but vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I did give thought. I thought, how am I going to deal with this? And I could not think of any other way that I've got to be really tough on you.
Yeah.
If you want
You
to
just
get to
jumped
a
right in.
place, there's no point dragging something out over a couple of years.
Yeah.
You need to get it in your head now and have time to think about it.
Yeah. There was no pussyfooting around it, like they say.
No,
Like,
if you can't take it, well, you can't take it. It's not personal. It's just, you know. I thought you did incredibly well. It exceeded what I thought you would do. I thought you'll lose it because obviously this is very tough.
yeah.
It's tough. Anyone who thinks what you went through is that piece of cake, no way. It was having you basically like a surgeon dissecting you,
Yeah.
and
It
I'm
was
glad.
hard yards for you,
I
Glenn. Props to you. Jeez.
4 months. Four
Shoot.
months it took.
Yeah.
Ouch.
And that was late night conversations.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh
there it is.
man.
Yeah.
All right.
The three of us had a lot of late night conversations and the three-way chat. It was wonderful. It was a memorable period of my life for sure.
Well, you can thank your mum for a lot of those questions. So
Sure.
they're very much influenced by her influence upon me. So
Yeah. Well, either way, it's a blessing. It's a blessing that you guys met.
Yeah. It's the right
I
time, I think.
I think what the moral to the story is just every connection. Never dismiss it. Just
Right.
because you never know down the line when it will assume, in many respects, a greater significance than it had at the time.
Wow.
And that's
Yeah.
exactly what's happened here.
Yeah.
It's much more significant than I could have ever imagined.
Right.
Way more significant than at the time. It's just never
Yeah.
ending. It's like, yeah, crazy. You just don't know. Don't
Yeah,
shut
it
yourself
is.
off.
It is actually. I mean, really, when you think about it, it is actually pretty crazy
Yeah.
that this happened. You know, for you to have a relationship with my mother when you did, and for you to come here and visit, and for her to go there and visit, and then for years to go by, and then for her to pass unexpectedly, and then for us to really get together because of a errant email, because I was monitoring the emails. I never would have seen that um, had I not been monitoring my mother's emails to make sure that we told everyone what had happened. You know, that we tried to cover everything on Facebook and her phone. You know, I went through her phone and tried to call anyone that I thought might have been a client and any of her friends and all of that. But, you know, we wanted to make sure and catch everyone that she knew. And yeah, so that was the circumstances in which I ran across that email in the first place. And although my reaction could have been better to that, it is the mechanism by which we started having conversations. So,
Yeah.
I checked because I'd had a number of computers, and when I checked back, like when I said to Cripps, I didn't send it. It was honestly true. I was not giving him crap. I was not. And when I checked, your mum's email was not even on that computer. So how did it get there? I'm not joking.
It's
This is
so
ridiculous.
interesting. It's
How did?
God.
Well, that's in that case. I'm probably thinking, well, it's about the only alternative.
Right.
Right? Like, oh my
Right.
gosh.
Crazy.
It is crazy. The whole thing is crazy. It's you know, people think they're an accident. There's the term happy accident, and I don't think things like that are an accident. Christ is the truth, says God! Exclamation point. Yeah, yeah, I would agree. Glenn would say universe, but you know, it's essentially the same in some ways.
I had a topic based, if that was all right.
Yes, I want to hear your topic, but John just answered this
Oh,
question,
sorry.
so we can move.
Okay,
No,
sure.
it's fine. John said, first impressions of the show. Glenn is interested and honestly approaching this conversation as a non believer. Jen is open to learn as well as teach. Cripps has a need to help people heal. Oh, well, that's wow. I would say, John, that's pretty accurate in my opinion. What do you think, Glenn, of John's opinion of first
Uh,
impressions of the show?
could you read them again, please? I just can't see it.
Yeah, it's the last comment that went in. First
Oh,
impressions of the show. Glenn is interested and honestly approaching this conversation as a non-believer. Jen is open to learn as well as teach. Cripps has a need to help people heal.
mm. Yeah, it's. I'm not quite sure how he says I'm approaching this conversation. Which conversation? All of it, or?
It's first impressions of the show because remember
Oh, okay.
I don't know when he first heard the show, but when you
Hmm.
came on, it was Ask an Atheist. I mean, that was the
Oh, yeah.
segment that we
Well,
did.
I
And
don't really approach it as a non-believer. I just try to approach it as being open and honest with my opinion. But I'm not really focused on non-believer. That used to happen more so when we had um,
right,
other other believers on the
right,
program, because I was like in the wilderness and I'm the only one with a
you
different
were,
flag. But
you
Yeah,
were.
and
you
I
were
would
Oh,
have to
brave.
sort of I was stressing I'm an atheist, like, because I need it's all this crap flying past. I said, nothing to do with me. You guys, if you want to tear each other's heads off, leave me out of it. Like,
Oh
but
man.
now though, no. The way the show is now, I don't approach it that. I don't even think of it as a non-believer anymore. Like, you just heard my comment then. I said, well, it had to be God, didn't it?
mm-hmm.
I
Right?
didn't have a
You got your
problem with
God
that.
hat on. We haven't talked about that in a while. The
Well, it
God
can be
hat.
anything. The world works in mysterious ways. I don't feel the need anymore to distinguish myself as a non-believer, even though obviously my attitudes are that way inclined.
Yeah.
So, and the rest of you, Jen, open to learn. Yeah, that's pretty fair. Yeah, Chris. Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate thing all around.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's good, John. Thank you for sharing. All right, go ahead, Glenn.
All right.
Uh,
Oh.
go on, Jen. Sure.
Oh no, I was going to go on to the next question, but if you hadn't answered yet, I didn't want to interrupt.
I just
He's
wondered how.
got a topic.
I've got one.
Oh, awesome.
Well, just in the 2 minutes.
I didn't answer the question.
Oh, I'm
You
sorry, Ness. Oh, shoot.
can say shit.
Oh, shit. Shit.
Go, Nez, go.
First I met Cripps, and it wasn't here in TSL. And I thought, this guy's got a good voice. He's got some acting skills. And I didn't even know about TSL then. I thought, hey, this would be a fun person to collaborate with. And
Yeah.
look how that's panned out.
Oh
I
yeah.
know, right?
I'll give God credit for that. When I came on the scene, Jen, I just knew we clicked right away between the artwork and what we've both been through as
Yeah.
far as abusive relationships and recovering and trying to recover. Just a real kindred spirit thing going on there. With Glenn, it was all gravy.
Gravy.
Another surly old man in Australia that I just love dearly and I love communicating with and gives me hell and I deserve every bit of it. And I just, all gravy with Glenn. It's all sultana cake with Glenn.
Wow.
Sultana cake. Love it.
Yeah, it's
Fair
great.
enough.
All right, go ahead,
All
Glenn.
right, Glenn.
Let's hear the topic.
In the 2 minutes before before the show started, you were speaking about the a week sort of very quickly about attitude towards finances within families.
Right.
I'd like to hear. See, I've got this impression that, obviously incorrectly, that when families deal with finances, if anyone gets in, just generalising, if people get into trouble, need help, everyone chips in and says, "Yeah, we'll just act in the greater good and help out and do whatever." But that obviously doesn't seem to be the case. And I just wondered, the other people here, can they explain how do finances work between, you know, parents, children, siblings, etc., in their families?
Yeah.
Is it a sore point? Is it something that people just work around it and everyone does chips in, or if you need a loan or you get, things go bad, what happens? How does it work in other families?
Well,
Thanks.
thank you. I'll be glad to go first. So, I personally, I'm very much a person that feels like family does for family, and that I don't know how I came up with that because my family isn't like that. So this may be wish fulfillment on my part. For instance, when my mom died unexpectedly and my grandma needed someone to take care of her, and my mother had shared with me before she died that her wishes were, and she put it in the will, her will, that if something were to happen to her, since I was single and didn't have any children, if I was willing to take on the care for grandma if she preceded her in death, that I would be willing to do that. And we had conversations about that. And I was like, "Oh, Mom, you're not going to die before grandma. I mean, come on." Um, but she did. And she seemed to have an awareness that that would happen. That's a whole nother story. But um, so when it happened, I stepped up and I did what I thought was right based on my mom's wishes and based on my situation at the time, and my relationship with grandma, which was a lot better, in my opinion, just based on my grandma not being my mother. And we had a different relationship, and it was, in my opinion, a lot easier for me to deal with her without all that baggage that went along with my mom and her. And also, and this isn't pats on the back, it's just to explain my view. My dad got into an accident. His diabetes he caused his sugar to get low, and he got into a car accident. He broke his back. So it was a no brainer. Shannon said, "Well, he can live at my house, and we can take care of him." And I was staying in the basement apartment at the time, and my sister handled making meals for him while he convalesced, and I handled the bathing and trips to the doctor and that sort of thing. And it took him like 6 months to recover, and that's just what we did. Nobody had a conversation. Well, do I really want to sacrifice my time and attention to help our dad? No, it was ingrained that this is what you do. Our parents raise us and they take care of us when we're children, regardless of whether they did a good job or not. The fact is that they do. So my view is when they get older, if they live long enough to experience issues with growing old, then as much as we can, my attitude is that we take care of them. And a lot of people have that attitude. So far be it from me to think that if I'm struggling with something, my goodness, my family is going to be there for me. And that's not always the case. So with finances for our family, it very much is something that there are contracts involved. There are, well, I don't know if I can do that. I have to seek counsel. It's not, hey, we can all work on this together. And like Glenn says, what Glenn says, like some dream from a fantasy adventure movie that someone created. It's not a reality. That's not my reality at all. It is how I am, and it is how I'd be. even if I had a friend, Jen and I talk about this all the time. If we had a friend that was struggling financially, if we had the means, I would have no problem helping them. I wouldn't waste a single minute worrying about helping them. Now, we've struggled a lot and we're just not in that position at this time, but we're praying and hoping that we are put in that position so I can prove, not prove to anyone else. I'm just saying so I can show that this is who I am as a person. I've been through enough financial struggle to know that it's hard and it sucks to have your life upended because you simply don't have enough money to pay for something, whatever it is. Okay, that's
spiel.
All right, I'm done. All right, who else? Jen, do you want to share your family finances?
No. I don't mind sharing with you guys. So 2 years ago, I'll just share a quick story.
Yeah.
I'll take Jason's lead. Jason and I had planned, like we were struggling financially, and I had mentioned to my mom in passing a couple times, just keep us in your prayers. And so we had scheduled, and that sounds so clinical, but I had texted her and said, hey, Jason, I was wanting them to get to know Jason better. So we were making an effort to like have phone calls with them to where we could just visit. And I texted her and I was like, hey, do you guys have time to visit over the phone tomorrow, like around 6? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, sweet. Okay, cool. So I was going to call them. And then when 6 o'clock rolled around the next day, I want to say it was a Saturday, my dad is calling. And I was like, okay, I guess he's like super excited. He took the jump on it and like beat us to the punch,
Yeah.
And we got on the phone and it was the weirdest conversation I've ever had. And I didn't know this at the time, but behind the scenes, my mom had mentioned to my dad in passing that she wondered if we wanted to talk to them about borrowing money from them. And so when my dad deals with anxiety. And I think when my mom had mentioned that to him in passing, it kind of got his wheels turning. And he knew that I think at that time I think I was a nanny at that point, or maybe I wasn't yet. If I was at my last job, I wasn't actually working full time yet. And Jason was working some side jobs, but he wasn't working full time either. So things were even more tight.
Right.
And so my dad called and he just jumps right into this spiel and talking about, himself and all the jobs he's had and kind of making points about his life. And it was obvious that he was trying to make a point without coming out and making the point.
Right.
And Jason and I are on the couch and we're looking at each other like, what is this? Like, what is going on? And my mom's like not saying anything. And he's beating around the bush for a while.
Yeah.
And it kind of finally made sense as to what the point was that he was getting to. But I just was like, why? Like, why is he going here? I don't understand. But then it became obvious that I think he thinks that we want to borrow money from them.
Right.
And he doesn't want us to ask them for money, but it was he never came out and said it. And so it just was a very awkward, weird conversation. And it just was weird. So anyway, I found out later from my mom what had happened behind the scenes that ended up bringing about this conversation, and things kind of clicked together. But that was very unfortunate. And I think I even emailed my dad after the fact, and I just wanted things to be clear. I've had this relationship, which was, the concept was new, to be direct with people, and I still was in that place of practicing, and I still am. I'm further along, but I still am.
Yeah.
But I just asked him outright, okay, so do you not want us to ever ask you for money?
Mm-hmm.
I just was very direct, and he never emailed me back.
No.
So now I will say my brother Mark has helped us out once, and it was very sweet, and he was like, this is a gift, like, don't worry about paying us back. But it is this it's a very uncomfortable topic. There seems to be a lot of guilt and shame surrounding asking family for money in our family. And so when I've heard Glenn mention before his perspective a couple of times, we've had conversations about it, and it's like it seems like the way it should be, not to abuse it or anything, but that families should be there for each other when they can be, and or at least approachable. And if you go and ask someone, it's like safe to approach, but if that person can't, or if they don't want to, then you can say no, and there's no hard feelings. But not everybody knows this. So there have been times I've thought, okay, in some families, especially if there's not communication happening, like direct communication, like we mentioned earlier,
Right.
there can be times where someone may think that if they say no, it's going to blow everything up. So there's been times I've thought, I wonder if my dad thinks this, and that's why he didn't come right to the point and just come out and say, hey, mom had this crazy wild hair idea that you guys might be calling for money. Is that why you're wanting to visit with us? And then we could have said no.
No.
And then it would have been totally fine. So I will say this last part of the story, when we had a conversation months down the road, and we talked through what had happened with this phone conversation and why it was upsetting, and just got everything on the table. We were at the end of the conversation. We had talked through everything, smoothed things out. And I don't remember how it happened, but my mom made a comment where she said, we just want to be able to be approachable and talk about things. And what did she say? Do you remember, like, kind of what she said?
Yeah, it's what you're saying is
in
line with it.
In line with it. So then Jason goes, Gail, I'm really glad you said that. And then what did you do?
I said, because we'd like to borrow some money.
And then there was like silence for like 6 seconds.
Yeah.
And Jason and I started laughing, and then my mom and dad started laughing, and it was hilarious. It was so funny. It really showcased his humor really well. It was just so funny. Oh my gosh. But like for those 6 seconds of silence, I think they were like, oh shit, wait, what?
Oh, yeah. They've stepped in it now because they're
like, oh no.
Yeah.
Because what she just said,
yeah, we want to be approachable. I'm like, all right, let's approach.
It was so funny. Anyway,
that was good.
So yeah,
you did that very well, Jen.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I didn't blow it up. Good deal.
All right, Nez, do you want to share your finances?
The family I come from, my mother's family, my grandparents believed in helping somebody, and you just had but to ask, or sometimes they'd even, same thing with my mother, and you don't even ask for anything back if they're helping you out. I mean, it was just the way you're supposed to do.
Right.
The rest of my family were dealing with narcissists and enablers, people who love money and worship money, and better do what they say do, and bend over and take all of their abuse.
Right.
And maybe they'll help you, and maybe you'll be their indentured servant until they pay them back, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So I chose many years ago not to be involved with the remaining members of my family that think that way.
Right.
So my kids don't need to learn that or be subject to that.
No.
I don't know. They have more money than they know what to do with, but I don't need what would come with it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Because with a lot of families, there's strings attached.
Absolutely.
And you're right. I think with some families, you do become an indentured servant, or even if you pay them back, it's like you never hear the end of it.
Right.
And it's with the strings are, well, I lent you money that one time, like you should do X, Y, and Z, and not even balk. You owe me your life.
Right. My mother's siblings, they're more about helping each other, but they're really not wanting to help me. They think they've done enough. They hold it over my head that my mother needed help when she was alive, and blah, 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 and just a bunch of garbage and nonsense. And I say it stops there, and I'm not carrying any of that negative forward to my children.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Nope. Yeah.
Right.
Good for you, Nez.
All right.
One of those touchy subjects.
Yeah, it can be, but I think the four of us are comfortable enough with each other. We've asked enough tough questions to get over that, right?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I didn't mean between us. I meant
No, I
between
know.
families.
I know. Yeah. So Glenn, I believe everyone answered your question, and you've already. Am I right to assume that you've already kind of made it clear what your stand is?
Well, I was set an example like my just thinking of my well, we grew up in pretty poor circumstances. Let me put it to you that way. But my grandparents, my parents, they would have given you the shirt off their back, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's a huge role model in that. He's never tried to make people feel guilty
Right.
for asking if they get into trouble. Tell you,
Yeah.
have your heart open to hear what they have to say. Don't sort of put the shutters down and then they never come near you. Like I've got a case with, and Sandra and I are in a pretty, what you would call, maybe precarious.
Yeah.
I hope I don't fall off the perch. Anyway, but we're dealing with it. But like, that's because we gave money away to the kids.
Oh, yeah.
we'd be killing it, but we saw that our kids needed to get a start on whether that things are tough, so we gave money away and sort of dropped ourselves in it. But like my son and his wife, even though my son's got a good job, she can't work, and he's got a huge university debt. Put it this way, they're just on the borderline even so. So if he gets in, they won't go to the other side of the family, even though they've got millions of dollars.
Yeah.
To just if they get just sort of stuck, they come and ask me, and they both know that we've got little to be able to offer. But you see, that's the difference. That we just say, well, look, let's just work this out. We do sort it out somehow.
Mm-hmm.
We always work around it.
Yeah.
But just the thought, if that's how finances work within certain families, what else is being cut off?
Right.
That's
that's a good point.
The deeper meaning here is that if that's their attitude, I mean, is it keeping the people that you really care for at a distance?
Yeah.
Where they don't want to come to you.
Right.
I want it to be the opposite. I want my kids to tell me, you get in trouble, put it on the table, tell me. I want to be approachable.
Yeah.
It's a gift.
It is a gift.
You're giving.
Right.
So I find it very difficult to understand why families get into trouble over this issue. Why do people feel closeted and unable to speak and have to? No, Christ is the truth said. If I had to, if there was one thing about pride, I think, I try to do it myself, etc. But sometimes it's beyond your capacity to do it yourself. What then?
Yeah.
I mean, if someone opens their heart to you, and chips in, it's a great example for what you might do down the line when the generation's gone past and you're in the next one.
Yes. We stop it here. If Jen and I were ever blessed to have kids, I don't care how old the kids are. They're still my kids. And yes, of course, we don't enable them to be degenerate gamblers or whatever and give them money so they can keep up some lifestyle that's destructive.
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
But
we're talking about responsible people here.
Right. Exactly. So that's the way that we would be. And that's the way I am. And that's the way Jen is. So it's difficult to be in a family where there's all this, like Jen shared with her family. I have shared enough with my family. Sometimes people will surprise you. And I have asked permission for my dad to share this. So I'll wait till he responds, but I'll just say that this ties into a question that Christ is the truth. He says that kind of opens up another interesting topic in accepting help when you need it, because that's a whole nother subject.
Yeah. Gosh.
And I'm on the end of that. If I need help and someone offers it, I'm willing to accept it. I find it very difficult to openly ask for help in that way. And there was a time in the past year that Jen and I were really in a bind before I got the job, and I had reached out to a closer friend and asked him for help, and he had said at the time he couldn't help, and he said, "Why don't you ask on Facebook? You know, there's people out there in the Christian world and the family that would be willing to help." And I said, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm not asking publicly for help. What are you crazy?" And he called me out on it. He said, "That's pride." And I really reacted. I was like, "How dare you?" I mean, I didn't say this to him, but internally, I was like, "How dare you accuse me of pride? I'm not prideful. It's not about pride. It's about embarrassment. You know, it's about first of all admitting that you need help. Second of all, you're going hand in hand to people and relying on their better nature, that if they have the means to help you, they will." But I process things. I might react strongly in the negative when something like that comes up, which I did. But I really started thinking about it, and I thought, he's right. It is a pride issue, and I hate pride. I don't want to traffic in it at all. I don't want to even have an ounce of pride. And I swallowed it, whatever little bit of pride or a lot, whatever it was. And we did ask for help publicly, and people did help. And it blew my mind. It absolutely, Jen cried. I mean, she's overwhelmed that people would hear that cry for help and be willing to pray for us.
Yeah, it wasn't just the thankfulness though. For me,
Right.
I was really having a hard time with pride for asking people for help. It seems, for me at least, it just has this embarrassment and guilt and shame attached to it. And asking publicly for help, and I think part of it too, and I'll be honest, I think there's been times I've seen other people do it and I've judged them. And so I kind of had to come face to face with that regarding me having judged other people for publicly asking for help, and the thoughts I thought and how gross that was to have to come face to face with that.
Yeah.
And I had a really good cry on my face after I posted on Facebook, and part of it was that, and part of it was just all these feelings of guilt and shame, and even guilt and shame for having pride. It was a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, it was cathartic, but the fact that people helped, it was very humbling, and it changed me in a way to remember not to judge people. It's just, it's not good. Right. We have no idea what people are dealing with. And yes, there are people out there that abuse the system or abuse people's hearts and their giving nature. There are some people who have been enabled, and they're stuck in a place where they're, not maybe doing things that they could do to help themselves. But there are people out there that are really in a spot, and it's nothing that they've done, or they're just in really bad circumstances, and it's just life's down on them in that moment. And we just have no idea. We have no idea. And it was very humbling.
It was. And you just made an interesting point too, Jen. And Glenn, I believe that what I took from a lot of what Glenn said is the same thing. He was saying he wants them to come to them and put it on the table. How are people going to know if they have the means to help you if you are unwilling to ask for help? Now, there are people in the Christian world that would say, well, God knows. Well, of course God knows. But you don't know that he doesn't want you to swallow your pride and ask someone for help so that they will help you. If someone doesn't know that you're struggling, how are they going to know to reach out? Now I say that, and there have been some times that I might have been struggling with something, and some random thing happened. In particular, one time when after my divorce, when my phone was about to be shut off, and I didn't have a job at the time, and I got a deposit that I had paid for the electric in my first marriage came in the mail on the day that I needed to pay my phone bill. Literally in the mail that day. And I know people say this all the time. In the past, I've been pretty, oh, yeah, right. But it was the exact amount of what I needed. No more, no less. To the cent. That's the strangest thing that's ever happened to me as far as that goes. One of those types of stories. But it really happened. Blew my mind. But anyway, does anyone else want to comment on this, the asking for money thing? And then we need to close it up because we haven't eaten dinner yet, and I want to get some food in my belly.
I just wanted to say, many times when there's a situation like this, when you're thinking of your own situation, you don't consider how, to use Jen's word, how cathartic it is for the person who has little that might say, here's $5.
Right. Right.
We don't think of that, but we should. Put yourself in the position of the giver.
Yeah.
No doubt for them, it's huge to be able to just do something small. That's, to Mom, and that is an amazing gift.
Yeah.
Why deny them?
Right. Well, it's almost like that's what is happening. You're denying the person, first of all, the ability to be able to help you by knowing that you need help, and then also by being a giver. Certainly, biblically speaking, God loves a cheerful giver. And of course, that's been taken advantage of. But it doesn't take away the validity of that statement. That's a good point, Glenn. Thank you. Any other comments from anyone else before we shut her down? Christ is truth. Thank you for saying that. That added an extra little closure to the topic that we were just discussing that Glenn brought up. So thank you for that. Thank you for everyone in the chat. You guys are great. And I'm not just saying that. I mean, you guys show up, almost every weekend. Most of you show up almost every weekend, and you listen and make comments and talk to each other. And it really is heartwarming. And I think we would do this, we have 13 people in the chat right now, and we know more people listen that don't ever come in the chat. And we're grateful for you guys too. Don't get me wrong, but you guys show your support by participating and being here, and it is not taken for granted. We're not a huge channel. Maybe we'll never be a huge channel, but I think we'll keep doing this, or I would be willing to keep doing this as long as 13 people show up, as long as 5 people show up, and they seem to enjoy these conversations that we have. I don't know of any other channel on YouTube that's doing anything that's exactly like what we're doing, and I love it. As Jen said, it was sad that we took a year off, but some changes needed to happen, and for me, personal growth that happened over that year. And when we came back, it was really a different show. And I love the panel that we have. It seems perfect. Don't need to add or subtract anything that we're doing. And little by little, more people are subscribing and listening. And maybe we do this for 10 years and we'll break 1,000. I don't know. It is what it is. But having said that, if these conversations are meaningful to you in any way, it would really be considered a wonderful favor for you to tell someone else that you know to come by and subscribe and listen. We would appreciate that as well. Word of mouth is the best advertiser, in my opinion. So if you do like what we're doing here, please just pass it along to someone else. Drop the link in your social media, as Nez always says. That's appreciated too. Also, if you haven't already, be sure and drop a like on there. Just takes a second. Appreciate that. And I hope everyone has a good week. We'll see you next Sunday on this broadcast. And if Glenn's feeling up and ready to go, then we'll continue our series. But these open topic, open discussion with this particular game, it fills out the whole 2 hours and it goes by quick. So I really enjoy it. So thank you for being here tonight, and we'll see you all next Sunday. Jen, would you like to take a minute and say goodbye to the peoples?
Sure. No, I'm just kidding. I'm really, really grateful for this show and for you guys in the chat and panel members. And I just love discussions like this. And I love the open mic, open topic nights are great because we just have no idea where the conversation's going to go.
Right.
And that delights me. So thank you for everyone who showed up. Thank you for everyone that's listening to the replay. And we really, truly hope you guys have a great week. And if y'all have any prayer requests, you can pop them in the chat or you can email us privately. Yep. There was 2 different people in the chat that just shared from their hearts that they're dealing with some things and needing to heal. Yeah. The invitation's open if any of you, not just the 2 people that said something, but if any of you need to talk privately and just want to connect and just share and discuss things, like we're completely open to that. You can get in touch with any of us. So that's always open. That door is always open. Good night and sleep well.
Hey, Glenn, could you take a minute and say goodbye to the people?
Yeah. Thanks for coming, guys. I should be right by next week. Lucky I've had my mic muted because I would have been coughing through the whole show. But
oh, no.
That's all right. No whinging. We all have things to deal with. If this is the worst thing that ever happens, I'll be sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Just gotta, yeah. But see you next week. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Glenn. Based on what Jen said about the 2 people that mentioned they might could use some help with a few things. I popped my email in the chat, and I do suggest that everyone on the panel that wouldn't mind being contacted would do the same. Just pop your email in there. That if anyone wants to reach out, we will respond. And anyone that would feel better talking to a male or a female, we got you covered. Two guys, 2 girls on here. So we would definitely pay attention to your preferences of, if you want to talk to one of us more than the others, or even if you wanted to hear from all 4 of us. We've actually met people in chat before and had conversations like that as well, personal conversations. So we are all open to doing that. That's it. Okay.
Real quick on that end, I was going to say, if any of you have the ability to let us know if you've emailed, because I know sometimes if it's a new email, it goes to junk, and we would hate for someone to feel like they've emailed and we're just ignoring them or don't care. Okay, so just give us a heads up, just so that we can check the junk. I mean, I know I do every once in a while, but I'm sure there could be a chance I might miss something. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Jen. All right. Last but certainly not least, let's hear from Nez. And please take a minute to say goodbye to the peoples and close us out as you do so well every Sunday.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks to my distinguished co-panelists. Another great discussion. Thank you, everybody who participated in the chat. And thanks to everybody who was lurking, even if you didn't participate. Thanks for being here and listening. And thank you to those who catch that replay. Again, I'd like to ask you to share the stream out on your social media if you're inclined to do so. And like Jason just said, if there's anything you want to talk about, questions, suggestions for what we should talk about, or just issues you want to air out and discuss with somebody in confidentiality, please reach out to us and we'll get back to you. All right. I love this card game and I can't wait until we get to do it again. Thank you all for being here. And God willing, we'll see you next Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on True Story Live. God bless you all and good evening.